delighted to announce our panel discussion. We've got a panel on bringing blockchain to the masses from vision to reality. And to discuss that theme, I'm happy to welcome Jordan Freed, Senior Vice President of Global Business Development from Hedera Hashgraph, Zeeshan Feroz, UK CEO of Coinbase, Amanda Gutterman, CMO of ConsenSys, and Eric Demuth, co-founder and CEO of Bitpanda. And moderating the discussion today, we've got David Wachsman, CEO of Wachsman. I'll hand it over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming here and listening to us talk about something that I find incredibly important. But is it actually? So we're here to talk about how to bring blockchain to the masses. But the first question I have for this unbelievably esteemed panel of experts from all over the world leading global companies is, does it matter? Why? Why does it matter that we're going to bring blockchain to the masses? And if so, how? But let's just start with why. There.
The why is an open financial system is important because we live in a globalized world where everything gets automated and brought together, and there is absolutely no reason why the financial system, something that is in our daily life, is not. Everything is permission-based and very clunky, separated from bank to bank. They don't interact with each other. And cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology started to solve this.
Well, maybe started to solve this, but I'm a consumer. Why does that impact me? Amanda, your company has been trying to solve this problem for a very long time from its core. But again, why does blockchain matter?
Sure. So right now, when we interact with the global financial system, wherever we're located, we don't have a choice. We're born into a certain system, and we have to interact with that system in the way that it's been set up. And with the blockchain, and especially with programmable blockchains like Ethereum, which we work on at ConsenSys, you're able to select as a consumer to opt into systems that are programmed in different ways. That makes systems better because they can compete with each other and they can compete for you as the user.
So Jordan, your organization is building a blockchain protocol, kind of the railroad upon which applications will be built. So again, why does blockchain matter from their Hashgraph's perspective?
Yeah, fundamentally, we think that the internet is missing a trust layer. I think that the internet in its current form, frankly, sucks. I think that it wasn't what it was invented to be. In an effort to keep it free, we have exchanged free social networking and free web searches and free storage for the right to be spied on. Here in Europe, we have GDPR, that's an attempt to protect us, but I think we can do better. And I think what we need is a trust layer that disrupts the economic model for how we engage and interact with each other online, and I think that's what we're building.
And if we don't make it mainstream, we can't actually have that type of disruption, that positive disruption.
It's got to be mainstream. There's got to be an economic model for, and I'd say everyone in this room can monetize their data better than, I'm sorry, Facebook. I mean, you can. I think that all of us know ourselves better than just the pages we like and the people we interact with, and that's important. But I don't think we've had the technology stack to do that yet. I think that is what we're seeing, and that's what all these utility tokens are about. We're starting to build the infrastructure to give the power back to the people. And I think that's really our ethos. Let's build a better internet, and that's what we're doing at Hedera Hashgraph.
So another San Francisco company, as opposed to the one you just mentioned, base company, is Coinbase. And Coinbase has become the initial first unicorn of our industry, of the blockchain space. The UK CEO happens to be joining us today, focusing on EMEA matters. But Coinbase has a unique role in the ecosystem. You're not building your own blockchain protocol, at least not as far as I know. But you are supporting many of the leading tokens, utility tokens, cryptocurrencies. Why does outside of simply making more money for Coinbase, why is it important we make blockchain mainstream?
Why does what, sorry?
Why must we make blockchain mainstream from your organization's perspective?
So, I think what you touched on over there was the role we're playing in the ecosystem, and that role is very much to bridge the existing financial system with where we see this heading. And the question in terms of why are we heading in that direction, why does it matter, very much to Eric's point, I think the traditional financial system today, as it stands, is incredibly disjointed, and the best way to describe it is broken. And there's a vacuum for a digital form of money that, in my opinion, has the same attributes as, say, email. You can send it to anyone, anywhere in the world at the same speed for about the same cost. That runs on an open protocol. And I think digital currencies take us to that world. Our role in that ecosystem is to serve as the on and off ramps, is to facilitate, provide a trusted, safe environment for people to interact and make this transition from what they see money as today to where they're headed.
So Bitpanda plays a similar role in trying to help make sure people can go and get access to this new ecosystem. So how are you trying to support this? How are you making it easier for people to get online and start using cryptocurrencies?
So you can have the best technology in the world if you don't build a convenient interface, everything super snappy, people will not adopt. And this is what we are solving for Europe, that you can have the same experience buying, selling, storing cryptocurrencies, whatever it is, as if you would buy something online, on Amazon. And that should be the same user experience. Bring something that is, at the first view, super complicated, make it super simple, and try to build something that they are used to. And then the adoption can, otherwise there's no chance.
So is it just e-commerce for a foreign exchange tool? Is that what this is? Is this simply a new way to go and transfer value? Is there something deeper? Does there need to be? Again, I'd like to ask you.
Absolutely. So people talk about fintech, and most fintech businesses, I think, are actually surface layer businesses that build on top of the existing financial system. They look for efficiencies and they deliver value, and that's great. But I think what crypto does and what we're working towards is we're going to right to the base layer of the concept of money. How do we store our value? Who controls it? Who do we trust to store our value? And those are the concepts that we're challenging, that we're trying to create. Do we need to trust the central banks to manage money? Is that a given? So it absolutely matters, and I think what it allows us to do is to look towards a world where it's more fairer. People have a choice in terms of how they store their value, and almost a byproduct of that is this crypto ecosystem where that value can move efficiently and quickly across borders in a way that it knows no geopolitical boundaries.
All right, so you've convinced me, and hopefully a lot of this audience, that we need to have a global form of payments, an internet-native payment system, and you say store of value. So, by the way, that's kind of a high concept. What does store of value mean? Do you mean a bank account? What is a store of value?
So money is a store of value, right? Of £5, €5, it represents a certain value. It used to be pegged to gold at one point. Today, most people that are born into a country usually store their value in the local currency. You may choose to invest in gold, stocks, whatever it is that you keep your value in. Crypto is another form of value in that sense. Now, Bitcoin very much today, for a lot of people, serves as an investment, something that they stake value in and hold value in. I think what the fundamental difference here is, most instruments today are they're controlled by governments, for example, traditional money is. And what crypto does is it takes us to a world in 20 years' time where actually I hope I as a consumer would have the choice to keep my value in a central issued cryptocurrency, so a digital euro, a digital dollar, or in a decentralized currency. I could choose the monetary policy that applies to the money I hold. And I think that choice is what matters here.
That's an enormous responsibility to me as a consumer, to be choosing the monetary system and the economics behind that system. Not to say that I don't want that choice, but it is a huge responsibility. But can't blockchain be more? And again, if we're talking about mainstream, it can be more than payments. Smart contracts allow for magical things to happen. So can you talk, Amanda, about kind of how smart contracts work and how they're going to actually, or they could, affect people if it becomes mainstream.
Yes, absolutely. So smart contracts are both non-smart and not a contract, is also the first thing I say about them. So a smart contract is basically an if-then statement. So I could make a statement like, if the weather in Dublin is over 70 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow, according to weather.com, then my account that I have Ether in gets debited X amount of Ether to David's account that has Ether. And then based on what happens tomorrow, weather.com, which is our oracle, we turn to that to make a decision that automatically triggers the execution of the transaction that I described. So you can program that as much as you want. You can use all kinds of, basically every programming language that exists on the Ethereum blockchain to program a smart contract to do anything you want. And you can use something called the ERC20 token standard to program a token, a unit of value, kind of like what Zeeshan was describing, similar to a Bitcoin or an Ether. You can program it to have whatever properties you want. Of course, it doesn't automatically have value. The market for that token will decide whether the thing has value, and what you program it with will be part of that. But with tokenization and with smart contracts, you can basically program anything you want the same way you'd program an application, but including this type of value. So we're doing that in all kinds of different ways at ConsenSys. We're a venture studio. We incubate all kinds of different blockchain projects that are doing this for the music industry, for luxury goods, for data and analytics, for the energy industry, for gaming. We're doing pretty
That
much
sounds like
everywhere.
it's near everything. But
If I can quickly
Yes,
add to
please.
that, I think from a money point of view, that's probably the area I'm most excited about, because a €5 note in your pocket today, all that represents is value, and you can pass it to someone and that's it. But a digital representation of that, tied to what it's described as a smart contract, it opens up the possibility to actually make it intelligent. It can serve, it can be a part of an ecosystem where you can code things on it. Like, taking your example, if the weather's nice, I want extra beer money today because I'm going to have a drink outside. And you can code those types of logics in your, on the money itself and how that's managed. So I think that's one of the most exciting areas.
And then let's build a layer on top of that. So we have our smart contract for the weather, but let's say we want to build a prediction market on top of that and take out bets on what the weather is going to be. So you and I have this smart contract that says if this, then that. And then Zeeshan is saying, well, I bet that Amanda's going to be right about the weather. And then you build a financial system around that. You build an insurance industry around that. That's what all of those industries are. And these things are being represented, and there are adjacencies and choices being created next to the mainstream industries on the blockchain.
So does that mean that, again, from a practical perspective, because again, these concepts, they're heady and they're meaningful. And if we went to Trinity College down the road, we could talk much more about them. But are we going to actually transform insurance companies? Am I going to be able to buy insurance that's cheaper, faster, and better? What am I getting, Eric?
Everything is getting cheaper here because we will cut the intermediaries, all the middlemen. You don't need this anymore. Everything that involves money and trust will be is going to be programmable. When money is programmable, you can, what you just described, set it or bind it to some conditions. When these conditions gonna take place, things are happening without any time to wait. Just imagine your insurance thing. You have a car accident or something. Imagine what kind of bureaucracy you have to go through, and then also how long it takes until you get your money. All these things will be faster and cheaper because the middleman will be gone, and therefore the trust will actually go up.
David, I'd like to jump in on this comment because I think Eric's hitting at really the central point. You said, why should everyone in this room care? Why does blockchain need to go mainstream? There are so many industries and so many people that are harmed by this man-in-the-middle business model. When we look at the gig economy, we have a major tectonic shift happening in the way people earn income. 57 million Americans, just to take that as a starting point, are part of this gig economy where after work, they'll go drive for Uber or Lyft, just IPO'd, This is sort of the year of the gig economy IPOs, Upwork. They're earning income here, but when you go work on Upwork, you're giving up 20, 30% of your income to a business that simply matches someone looking to employ you to someone looking to provide a service. Let's take Uber drivers, for example, or Lyft drivers. I took an Uber here today. Uber, on average, if you include all the T's and C's, is taking 47%, between 42 and 47% of a driver's hard-earned wages. It's so bad that these drivers are living paycheck to paycheck, and they've got to find a way to get paid instantly. I think when we really assess what this technology can do at scale, and when we fix some of the problems with the underlying infrastructure, what we are going to see is a disruption of that Uber-like business, where with a smart contract or with decentralized file storage and with a payments layer that we just previously talked about, we're going to be able to build a new economy where maybe you as an Uber driver own your right to be employable. You own your identity. You own the right to be matched and to reject a ride, and you as a passenger can decide whose car you're riding in, and it's an elevated trust model without paying some person in the middle to facilitate.
Just to jump on that for a second and add to those examples, basically the centralization and all these walled garden style business models have led to the destruction of the creative classes. And creators, whether you're a journalist, whether you're in media, whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, you have these platforms that are siphoning so much value that used to be going into your pocket. So, and there's actually a great book called Who Owns the Future by Jared Lanier that I love that addresses this. But the question of, there are no more middle-class musicians in the United States, is the point that he's making, because you either are at this top layer where you get signed by these top labels, or you just can't make it, because these intermediary platforms are siphoning too much value out of the ecosystem. We're trying to fix that with platforms like Ujo, Singular DTV, trying to fix that in the journalism and media industry with projects like Civil. So I think it's going to completely rearrange how that works and put money back in the pockets of creative people.
All right, so I'm now convinced that this should happen. I think we've established that. But let's get to how. Practically, this is very hard to do. So let me explain from a different context. So Uber was able to go city by city. They didn't have to attack the entire world simultaneously, at least at first. Oh, here we've got this borderless, trustless blockchain ecosystem. We have competing blockchains, whether it's Ethereum and Hashgraph, or EOS, or any of the many, many others that exist out there. We have so many people competing, so much noise. The media, and I'll take a little bit of responsibility for this, has said a whole lot of words about this system. But how are we going to actually go and institute this practically? Do we need to get companies on board? Should we just go direct to the masses and go and say, hey, everybody download this app and magically it happens? Jordan, how are you solving this problem right now?
Yeah, I'll break it just into 4 buckets because we see it very straightforward. And of course, we need partners like Coinbase and like Bitpanda to be that on-ramp that Zeeshan described for the consumers to come in and enter this ecosystem. But we have to solve 4 key problems. First, there are requirements for mainstream adoption. You've got to have performance. And when I say performance, we need underlying infrastructure. At a high level, I mean layer 1. I mean the ConsenSys infrastructure has got to be able to be orders of magnitude better than what we're doing today. You need security. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we want grandma to store her net worth, all of her value, on a public DLT, a public blockchain. She's got to be able to trust it. She's got to be able to know it's not vulnerable to Sybil attacks or denial of service attacks.
Grandma's always thinking about Sybil attacks.
Grandma shouldn't have to think about Sybil attacks. It should just be so good that grandma doesn't even have to worry about it. And then the last 2 are really interesting because we really need stability. And when I say stability, I really mean we have to have the legal controls and technical controls required to keep a stable platform. And the final bit is governance. We can't let the world's global trust layer be run by a bunch of kids in mom's basement. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool science project. But when we talk about enterprise adoption, when you want mission-critical organizations like the Red Cross to really be using a public blockchain network, we've got to invite the enterprises to the table to be stakeholders. They've got to be the ones deciding what are the transaction fees. How do we set the rules? How do we draw the lines for the sandbox so the other companies can come play in it?
So Jordan, I'm with you there. But before we get to how fast or how powerful or how stable this new blockchain ecosystem is, again, I'm asking a fundamental question here. What is the actual vehicle to go and get mainstream adoption? Do we need corporates? Do we go direct to consumer? What does Coinbase think about this?
So I think it's about delivering value to the consumer. So from a consumer point of view, they don't really care about the underlying technology. Like, 4G is faster than 3G. I know that that's the benefit I have on my phone. Do I know how 4G works compared to 3G? I don't. So I think the focus is that enterprises that recognize the value can use the underlying technology to create value for customers. That will be the vessel. When I think about currencies, and this is slightly controversial, but I think the path to mass adoption is government, central bank issued currencies. So I think the world you're looking at is in a few years' time you'll have a digital pound or a digital euro. And I think that will spur innovation in this area, that will spur the creation of infrastructure that ultimately is transferable to decentralized networks. And I think that will drive mass adoption.
My answer is D, all the above, and that's what we're doing as ConsenSys. We're talking to enterprises and governments, doing large-scale enterprise and government projects. We're also building applications that are direct to consumer. This technology is on the level of the web, the level of the internet. And there are going to be enterprises that take that up and use it in their particular business use case. There are going to be business use cases for the consumer. It's going to be all the above, and those are going to converge into a world where everyone's using a blockchain. However, I do not think that grandma will ever be thinking about Sybil attacks, and I think one of the most crucial things we can do to drive mass adoption is mask the blockchain. I don't think people are going to want to interact with a blockchain that's right out there on the surface. I think people are going to be interacting with blockchains without even knowing it, and they aren't going to be choosing the technology because it's on a blockchain, because it has a buzzword. They're going to be choosing it because that's just what you do. That's just the application everyone's using. This is just the B2B software everyone's using. This is just the development tool everyone's using.
I completely agree with Amanda. Grandma's never going to know she's using a public blockchain network. What needs to happen, though, is how grandma gets onto a blockchain is some line of business owner. When I say line of business owner, I mean a decision maker responsible for line of business in a multi-billion-dollar multinational company has got to be sitting in the boardroom saying, I can solve my business problems using this technology stack. This is objectively better than going with AWS. This is objectively better than going to SoftLayer or IBM Cloud or Oracle Cloud. For that to happen, we've got to stop to the businesses from the B2B perspective as a platform trying to deliver a trust layer on the internet. We've got to stop selling blockchain, because the truth is we're not selling blockchain. We're selling a better way to do payments. We're selling a better way to manage your supply chain, a better way to manage your payables and receivables with vendors. That's what we're selling here. And when we start to frame it in that way, it's not this blue ocean where literally, David, you can do everything on a blockchain. It's not that. It's let's help line of business owners solve business problems. We may have a chance for mainstream adoption there.
But I would say it's not just the enterprise decision maker. I think it's also going to be startups. I mean, when the internet came along, there was that first group of web companies, a lot of which failed, but the ones that got through that winter, the Amazons of the world, and then the Googles of the world, and later the Facebooks of the world, ended up grabbing a ton of value and becoming the enterprises. And the reason why we have our model and why we try to find the next Google, the next Facebook, the next Amazon, but on blockchain, is because we think this new sector is going to have some major winners. So I think it's going to be a mixture of the enterprise and the startup. And actually, Coinbase, great example.
Listen, I completely agree with you both. But I will say this. So Netscape, people talk about Netscape. Netscape occurred, and Netscape was the browser, the first one that everyone downloaded. And then a funny thing happened. A company called Microsoft included in their highly marketed operating system called Windows 95, a browser called Internet Explorer. And suddenly everyone had the internet. And they were no longer dependent on small little ecosystems that were just only about them. Not that I'm calling this interoperability, to go into crypto language, but we need to have a better mechanism, a better channel partner to go and deliver this to millions of people. How can we get millions of, so two questions, Eric, I'd like to answer. First is, how can we get millions of people to download a wallet? Let's call this the first port of entry into crypto. And then, how many of you onboarded so far?
So, I don't think this will happen like this. It will be step by step by step, and we will use this technology without even knowing it. And then one day we get this app, and then we get that, and so on. And 10 years later, we are fully adopting this technology without even knowing it. But it won't be from one day to the other. We're talking here about disrupting the most protected industry in the world, the financial industry. It's the most powerful industry. It's controlled by mostly old, white, rich men. And I think this technology, the open source technology, will be something that enables, for example, a 15-year-old kid with internet access in the future to just, I don't know, create a protocol or an app that is just a killer feature. And this will be adopted somewhere else and so on. It's just like step by step by step. It won't be from one day to the other. But what was the other question?
Well, I think you've answered enough there.
All right.
What I want to ask is, Amanda, you guys have 20 offices or so around the globe. You have people working with governments and corporations globally. How are you trying to go and achieve, let's say, blockchain adoption internationally and simultaneously? Is it too complex a challenge? How are you doing this?
It's a mix. Like I said before, it's enterprises, it's governments, it's also consumer applications. The other thing that we're really going after that matters, that's global, that really isn't confined to any particular location, is developers. And it's funny you mentioned Microsoft just now, and you can picture Steve Ballmer on stage yelling, developers, developers, developers. And Microsoft has been a partner of ours. They've been a close collaborator with ours on Ethereum projects, with their blockchain as a service offering, and that's what's necessary, right? So what we care about globally is building out that developer community and trying to make sure the ecosystem gets as many at-bats as possible to build really killer technology. And that's why we've built projects like Infura, MetaMask, Truffle, all the infrastructure that's used when people actually want to build these applications, because there are developers all around the world, every single language, every single country. This is not a Silicon Valley phenomenon. This is not a New York City finance phenomenon. This is everywhere, and those individuals are building applications that are relevant for their communities, and we're talking to the enterprises and the governments in those communities about using them as well.
And with those developer tools, what you're going to allow is for the mainstream application in the future to be built by people not on this stage. Maybe in the audience instead.
Yeah,
people are going to have the opportunity to build things that deliver value to real people.
So it's like it's a layer below the question, right? The question is, what's the killer app? And the layer below the question is, what are the tools that facilitate as many people as possible trying all at once to build the killer app?
That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, right now, and I guess we'll kind of sort of end things with this, no one knows exactly how many people are currently using blockchain or crypto. There are lots of different tools for this, but there's a semi-anonymized wallet system that exists in all these various different blockchains and cryptocurrencies, which makes it hard to peg down. Right now, if you go to a website called CoinMarketCap, you'll see that the total ecosystem for crypto is more or less valued at $182 billion. Up quite a lot from the $5.9 billion when I started Wachsman in 2015. But, what's that?
$1 billion.
Unless something changed really terribly
Billion,
in the
yes.
last few minutes.
Billion.
Yes.
That's right. A large number, I'd say. But one thing we can rely on are numbers from trusted companies. So Coinbase has been around since 2012, is that correct? So it's only been 7 years. How many people has Coinbase onboarded thus far?
So we're at over 25 million users.
25 million users that have registered and gotten Coinbase accounts and have access through Coinbase to a multitude of cryptocurrencies. I would say that's a tremendous start so far, but I will also say that it's not enough if we're talking about true mainstream adoption. So the last question I want to ask all of you is, where is mainstream adoption going to happen first? Is it going to happen in developed nation? Will it happen in Venezuela? Or is Ireland going to be the first place where blockchain adoption is over 50%?
When you look at what's happening in the world right now, it's unfortunate, but you have hyperinflation in a lot of areas. And I think those are obvious starting places where people start losing faith in the fiat, the sovereign currency that they accept and they get paid in. You start to look for ways to hedge that. So I'm not here to say that Hashgraph is a hedge against fiat by any means, but I'm saying that more and more it's becoming acceptable to store 1% to 10% of your wealth in crypto. And if you're in a position to do something like that, you've got great on-ramps to do it. I do see economic conditions in the world starting to drive more adoption from consumers, but I see that as an on-ramp to have an underlying utility token that buys you the services of an AWS-like platform. It could be Ethereum, it could be Hashgraph, it could be another such tool, but if you need decentralized compute for file storage, payments, smart contracts, you're going to need these assets. I think it will be driven by developers, and particularly in places where fiat is concerning. It's not safe.
If only I knew the exact answer to that. I think that there clearly is an opportunity for developing markets where there's natural pressures based on their market conditions to look for stores of value that are beyond that. It could certainly come from that. But I think we also, in the developed world, we have infrastructure that is incredibly mature, and it may be where we're looking for efficiencies that crypto can step in and provide those efficiencies. I mean, what's to say that currency is sovereign? It has to be sovereign. What if the answer to Venezuela's problems is a digital euro that's accessible over the internet to every citizen there? So I don't know the exact answer, as I think what I'm saying there, and we are keeping our ears to the ground on whatever the potential opportunities could be.
So Amanda, a prediction market, where is it going to be adopted first?
Yeah, so I can make a little guess, and I think but both are right. We have these post-industrial economies that are going to be capturing efficiencies. We have the developing world where people lack access to identity and banking infrastructure, so the use case is super clear there. But there are also these developed tech-forward economies that are challenging the rest of the world in terms of adoption. We did a really interesting project with Union Bank in the Philippines. They're adopting. We're doing a project right now with the government of Dubai, helping them to become the first city to run on a blockchain by 2020. They're adopting. Singapore, they're adopting. So those are the challengers that are coming in and saying, there's an advantage to being a first mover here, and maybe we can move faster than some of the classic post-industrial markets that you think of. And those are the leaders in many ways. And the US is a leader, the UK is a leader, there's great work going on in Dublin, but some of these markets are challenging the pack.
Eric?
Very short answer. I think, unpopular opinion, it's going to be the EU. Because we have a lot of pressure from the US side, from the Asian markets, China and so on, and there's a lot of competition inside Europe when it comes to regulation. So I think that the EU is the perfect playground for this, and one country inside the EU will step forward, another one will, go a bit further and so on. I think Europe.
Okay, we heard it here first, guys. Thanks so much.